Life goes by too fast, and you only notice when you look back. The problem isn't lack of time, it's how you spend the little you have. And what if I told you that small daily choices are what really define everything? Let's get straight to the point. Do you want to learn how to use your life in a way that truly matters? Why do you feel like you don't have time, but keep losing hours without noticing? Time perception is deceptive. The brain shortens repetitive moments and stretches new experiences. Have you noticed how routine swallows entire days, while one day outside your comfort zone feels like a whole week? This isn't just a feeling, it's pure psychology. When you live on autopilot, you lose presence, lose attention, and, without noticing, lose life. The mind gets stuck in habits that drain your energy, sleep, creativity, and even your health. And then, productivity collapses. Time management becomes chaos, focus disappears, routine becomes pure repetition, without purpose, without growth, without impact. But when you expand self-awareness, something changes. You begin to see where your energy goes, which choices sabotage you, which long-term goals truly matter, and which experiences create meaning. You make room for discipline, clarity, life purpose, and better mental models. Like second-order thinking, if I do this today, what does it create tomorrow? Time perception is the first round of you versus you. When you understand this, you start gaining freedom of time, lifestyle, presence, and direction. And now comes the most important strike: priority management. Want to know why you do what you shouldn't and ignore what actually changes your life? Why do you solve everything that is urgent, but keep ignoring what truly transforms your life? The brain loves quick tasks because they give microdoses of reward. It feels like productivity, but it's just disguised busyness. Productivity without direction becomes a waste of time. And when that happens, your financial life stalls, your career stagnates, your energy drops. You get stuck in the same old routine, lots of effort, little impact. A priority isn't what appears in front of you, it's what shapes your future. If you don't decide what matters, someone else decides for you. And without noticing, your time becomes other people's property. You lose focus, clarity, purpose. And the most expensive of all, you lose time freedom. Now the question no one likes to face: does your routine today look like it was created by someone who truly wants to get where you say you want to go? Managing priorities is emotional intelligence applied. It is emotional regulation in action. It is rejecting the comfort zone and embracing new experiences that fuel growth. It is turning choices into direction, direction into consistency, consistency into meaning. And when that happens, a new scenario emerges. Your relationships begin to reveal who anchors you and who pushes you forward. Ready to dive into the dynamics that shape your life? Funny how you can spend years next to someone and still not grow a single step. Relationships shape perception, habits, emotions, goals, and the most curious part is that it all happens in silence. Strong ties sustain, weak ties expand. Both are necessary, but most people live surrounded by connections that drain energy instead of creating vitality. Want to see? Pay attention to how you feel after talking to certain people. Lighter? More creative? With more clarity? Or with the feeling that your life is stuck in time? Relationships are like walking mental models. Some pull you toward the future, others hold you in the past. And the hardest part? Being vulnerable enough to admit that certain proximities harm your productivity, your focus, your discipline, your mental health, and even your life purpose. Relationships need to have meaning, not weight. And emotional intelligence is precisely the filter that separates connection from dependence. When you surround yourself with people who push you to grow, even your routine changes. You discover new experiences, find new perspectives, create bonds that boost your career, purpose, creativity, and even time freedom. The right connections accelerate what would take years on your own. And that brings us to the next inevitable question. If your relationships influence your future, how is your professional trajectory? Is your career the result of your choices or other people's expectations? This is the question that knocks many people down. Because following a path without purpose drains energy, creativity, focus, and even health. Routine becomes automatic, time speeds up, motivation evaporates, and you start to wonder why you're always tired, unproductive, and stuck in the same version of yourself. Purpose is not a magical destination. It is perception. It's understanding what gives you vitality, what challenges you, what makes you enter a deep state of presence. Your work should generate learning, growth, impact, and clarity about your long-term direction. It should expand your self-awareness, not shrink it. But here's a truth almost no one talks about. You may have talent, but without discipline, consistency, and second-order mental models, your career becomes mere occupation. Life purpose is built with habit, strategic choices, life design, and good time management. It's thinking beyond now. If I continue like this for 5 more years, where does that put me? When your career aligns with your purpose, your energy rises, your creativity explodes, your presence improves, and your financial life begins to make sense. Even your professional relationships change. You attract connections that add, not those that block. And that brings us to the next point, maybe the most neglected and most decisive of all. Without health and vitality, no purpose can stand. Want to see why? You know exactly what you need to do to have more energy. But why don't you do it? Because the body charges for what the mind tries to ignore. Poor sleep destroys productivity. Lack of movement affects mood, focus, and even your ability to make good decisions. Chaotic eating disrupts your emotional regulation. It's all connected. Psychology, routine, discipline, presence. Without vitality, even simple tasks feel like mountains. Your perception of time worsens, your focus disappears, your creativity stalls. And then you believe the problem is lack of motivation, when in reality, it's lack of energy. How can you grow, create, learn, improve relationships, or build a career if your body is asking for help? Want a quick test? Swap 20 minutes of infinite scrolling for 20 minutes of walking. Watch how your attention shifts, how your mood lifts, how your clarity appears. Exercise is the best productivity hack there is. Quality sleep is time-saving. Conscious eating is second-order thinking in practice. You invest today to harvest tomorrow. When you take care of your vitality, your life gains a different texture. Presence increases, attention improves, habits become easier, discipline stops being suffering and becomes a lifestyle. And all of this opens space for the next inevitable step. If the body is prepared, how are you training the mind to truly grow? Do you learn or just accumulate information? Because knowledge without application is just the illusion of progress. And many people think they are growing because they watch videos, read posts, save tips, but in practice, they remain stuck in the same routine, the same habits, the same results. True growth is born from friction. New experiences, discomfort, trial and error, small risks, new perspectives. That's how the brain expands mental models, creates clarity, strengthens discipline, and develops second-order thinking. Growth requires presence, attention, intention, not just content consumption. And here's the detail that changes everything. You don't need to learn fast. You need to learn always. Consistency beats intensity. Studying a little every day, trying something new, breaking the comfort zone, observing your own choices, that builds long-term evolution. It's applied self-awareness. It's life design in real time. The more you grow, the more the world changes shape. Goals become clear, priorities become simple, relationships improve, career accelerates, health stabilizes. Growth reorganizes everything. And this leads us to the skill that sustains all others. If learning transforms you, feeling the right way keeps you on the path. And that is emotional intelligence. Want to understand why it decides who advances and who gets stuck? You know that moment when you know exactly what you need to do, but something inside you freezes? That's lack of emotional intelligence, not lack of knowledge. Most people don't lose to the world. They lose to their own dysregulated emotions. Anxiety steals focus. Anger distorts perception. Fear creates excuses. Sadness blocks energy. And each poorly managed emotion consumes the same scarce resource, your time. Emotional intelligence is learning to feel without sabotaging yourself. It's understanding that vulnerability is not weakness. It's clarity. It's self-awareness in action. When you regulate emotions, you choose better. And better choices change habits, strengthen discipline, refine priorities, and stabilize financial life, health, and productivity. Well-managed emotions also shape your relationships, creating stronger ties, more useful weak ties, and more genuine connections. The most powerful part? The more emotionally intelligent you become, the less you need to fight against yourself. You gain presence, attention, and time freedom. You become more creative, more consistent, more prepared to design long-term plans. And since we're talking about better decisions, here comes the next painful question. If your emotion influences your wallet, how is your relationship with money? Have you noticed that money doesn't disappear? It slips away through choices. A healthy financial life doesn't begin with a spreadsheet. It begins with awareness. Because every expense is a micro-emotional decision. Anxiety buys impulse. Boredom buys distraction. Low self-esteem buys validation. And all of that drains your time freedom, your productivity, and even your health. The question that changes everything is simple. What does this expense give me now? And what does it take from me in the long run? That's second-order thinking. It's an abundance mindset with responsibility. It's understanding that finances aren't just for paying bills. They're for building lifestyle, purpose, security, energy, and even opportunities for growth. The more clarity you have about where your money goes, the easier it becomes to direct it where it should go. Investing becomes a habit, not an event. Saving becomes strategy, not sacrifice. And financial freedom stops being fantasy and becomes consequence. Minimalism is this: not having less, but eliminating what has no meaning. With well-managed money, your mind becomes lighter, your discipline becomes easier, and your career gains momentum. And when the basics are organized, space opens for the most neglected part, but the one that defines the entire game. If you want to build something greater, you need to unlock your creative life. Ready for that? Creativity is not talent, it is directed energy, and it disappears precisely when you need it most. Have you noticed? Without sleep, without vitality, without focus, your mind only replicates what it already knows. Routine becomes repetition, and without new experiences, no new ideas exist. Creative life begins when you reduce noise, create creative constraints, and learn to play with limits. Paradoxical, right? But that's how the brain works. The fewer the distractions, the greater the attention. The more clarity, the more originality. Creativity is disguised discipline. And here's the detail almost no one talks about. Ideas don't fall from the sky. They appear when you live enough to feed the mind. Reading, conversation, discomfort, curiosity, presence. Weak ties bring new perspectives. Strong ties give emotional support. Vulnerability creates space for real connections and even better projects. Creativity is also energy management. Without energy, there is no mental impulse to create. Without presence, there is no perception. Without solid mental models, there is no innovation, only copying. Creating requires consistency, experimenting, failing fast, learning fast. And that brings us to the point that sustains everything. How are you taking care of your personal energy? You don't need more motivation, you need more energy. Energy is the root of everything: focus, discipline, creativity, productivity, clarity, even your ability to make good decisions. Without energy, you can't enter presence, you can't sustain habits, you can't advance in the long term. And here comes the painful truth. You know exactly what drains your energy, but you keep doing it. Broken sleep, excessive screen time, poor diet, zero movement, chaotic relationships, a routine without purpose. Each of these choices steals a piece of your day and of your vitality. Want to measure your energy in 10 seconds? Observe the first hour of your morning. If it starts on autopilot, your day ends on autopilot. If it starts with intention, clarity, and smart micro-choices, your productivity skyrockets. Energy is pure inverse thinking. Instead of asking, "What do I need to do today?" ask, "What do I need to avoid today to keep my energy high?" When your energy rises, everything in your life improves. Focus, presence, creativity, emotional regulation, even your relationships. People notice. Doors open. You become more magnetic, lighter, more efficient. And this opens up an inevitable question. If energy is currency, then your connections are your bank. How is your social capital? Your future is not built alone. It is built through people. But here's the detail. It's not enough to know many people. You need the right connections. Weak ties expand horizons, bring opportunities, and increase creativity. Strong ties provide emotional support, strengthen discipline, and help with emotional regulation. Both are essential. But have you noticed that some people bring you closer to your purpose while others pull you away from it? That's social capital at work. Every conversation, every exchange, every relationship shapes your perception, your habits, your personal energy, and even your financial life. The world responds to the way you connect. Social capital is not empty networking. It's presence, attention, strategic vulnerability. It's showing up for real, not just being around. It's creating meaningful relationships that boost your career, mental health, creativity, and life purpose. It's having people who challenge you to grow, not those who keep you comfortable in the familiar. When you invest in high-quality connections, you save time, gain opportunities, and access experiences that would take years to achieve on your own. It's accelerated growth. And that leads us to the next point. If your connections shape your mind, then which mental models are guiding your decisions? What really drives your life isn't your dreams, it's your mental models. The way you interpret the world defines your choices, your habits, your discipline, your productivity, even your perception of time. If your mental model is weak, even opportunities look like problems. If it's strong, even problems become opportunities. Second-order thinking, inverse thinking, clarity, consistency, presence, everything starts here. A mind that only thinks about the present creates chaos. A mind that thinks long-term creates impact. A mind that thinks in cause and effect saves energy, avoids mistakes, makes better decisions, and grows faster. And here comes the question that changes everything. What mental models are you using without realizing it? Because many of them come from routine, family, relationships, past experiences, even the comfort zone. And when you don't review your models, you live on autopilot, repeating patterns you didn't choose, following paths that don't serve you, maintaining habits that sabotage you. Changing mental models is like updating your mind's operating system. You learn to better filter what matters, prioritize with more clarity, build smarter habits, elevate self-awareness, gain time freedom, and even improve your mental health. And once you understand your mental models, the most powerful question of all appears. If you can update your software, why not design your entire life consciously? Have you noticed that you live on autopilot? You wake up, do what you have to do, repeat, sleep, and call that life. But life design is the opposite. It's stopping living by reaction and starting to live by intention. It's looking at time, energy, purpose, habits, relationships, career, health, and adjusting everything as an integrated system. The key question is brutally simple. Is your life happening the way you want or the way you let it become? Life design is mental models applied. It's second-order thinking. What does this choice create today, tomorrow, and 5 years from now? It's practical minimalism, cutting what has no meaning. It's consistency, keeping what works. It's attention and presence, noticing where you're truly spending your energy. It's clarity, knowing what you need to build and what you need to let go. When you design your life consciously, your productivity rises, your health improves, your habits align, your discipline becomes lighter, your relationships become more genuine, your creativity increases, your goals make sense. You create abundance, time freedom, and a lifestyle that doesn't depend on luck, it depends on intention. And after designing this new structure, only one last question remains. How do you bring it all together and close the transformation cycle?
In the end, everything comes down to choices, not the big ones, the small ones, the ones you make in silence without anyone seeing. Because that's what determines your energy, your focus, your discipline, your health, your relationships, your financial life, your creativity, your purpose, your long-term trajectory. You don't change when you learn something new. You change when you apply it. When you regulate emotions, adjust mental models, reorganize priorities, build simple habits, live with presence, seek meaning, and build consistency. Transformation is not an event. It's an accumulation of daily micro-wins. In the end, it's always you versus you. And remember, this channel is free and only exists because of people like you who believe in sharing strength and motivation. If this message spoke to you, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Join us, turn on notifications, and keep evolving in this battle called you versus you.